Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, and I'm happy to be with you on No Soundbites Allowed for this episode because we have some very big news to talk about, something you may have missed on Saturday or on Sunday, something that is being spoken about now in the media and is sure to capture the news on Monday. It is a shocking bit of news. Are you ready for it? Here it comes. Okay, there it is. You ready? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez supports Bernie Sanders. Representative Ilhan Omar supports Bernie Sanders. Get ready for this one. Michael Moore supports Bernie Sanders. If you're not shocked at this moment, you're probably a human being. You probably have an IQ that's over 5. Who cares? Is this shocking to anyone in any way? Is there anyone who had any doubt whatsoever that Ilhan Omar, that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Michael Moore, and a slew of other democratic socialists, the progressives, that they were going to turn around and support any other human being on the planet for the presidency besides Bernie Sanders? Of course they supported him. Who else would they support? There is no one else on the list that they would ever even consider supporting. That's just it. Now, I can understand why the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez crowd, those Democratic socialists, why they love AOC and why they love that Bernie Sanders is with AOC. Because they want her to be vice president so that she can one day become president. They've already talked about, and we've heard the rumors before, of them talking about, well, even though Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not old enough or wise enough, in many other people's thoughts, to run for president, that they wanted to change the Constitution so that she could run for the presidency, which is just stupid. But that being said, and that's a personal opinion, I shouldn't call it stupid. It's just a ludicrous idea. But put that aside. Let's really think about this. Is anything about the announcement in any way a shock? It isn't. I mean, the media is playing it up as if this is an amazing bit of news, that this is a revelation, that Bernie is on the way back. He had a heart attack, even though he didn't call it a heart attack. He had a heart attack because he's old and he has ill health. And, now he's on his way back. He's going to be okay. This is Bernie Sanders on the recovery, folks. And I have to say to you, really? No, I don't think so. I mean, I really don't believe that's the case. Look at the charts. He's the blue line there. And in that blue line that you're seeing, this is Bernie Sanders at about 15.2%. He's been on the decline. He hasn't been rallying. The fact is, everyone else has been surging. Everyone else has been moving around. But Bernie, no, he's been pretty much stable here. And I'm not surprised. He's losing steam. And he probably should be, because Bernie Sanders offers nothing. He offers nothing whatsoever. And I want to be very clear about this. I mean, you listen to them talking about people, about what's the big deal. It's going to be Bernie versus Warren Sanders, if you're looking at the news. Like over here at NBC News, they're talking about the big structural change that is Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, that they're going to make a big structural change. In their article, Bernie Sanders scores AOC and Michael Moore endorsements. Is a clash with Warren inevitable? This sounds powerful. It sounds remarkable. It sounds like old news. Everyone knew that was coming anyway. It's not anything different. It's not anything surprising. It's not even anything important. And Michael Moore, because Michael Moore is an influential politician. He has so changed people's lives by saying that we should become like Cuba, because, you want to live in the 1950s, right? You want a car that's in the 1950s, which is really good for the ecology. Those gas guzzling cars that run throughout all of Cuba, the poverty that the people of Cuba live in, the reason why thousands upon thousands of Cubans, actually tens of thousands over the years, hundreds of thousands of Cubans have left Cuba and it took over, southern Florida. But more importantly, throughout the United States. They left their home nation because of the horrors of Cuba. And people were in, I know many people who are younger don't know this, look this up in the history books. Hundreds of Cubans would die every year traveling in inner tubes across the Gulf of Mexico to get to Florida. They were escaping Cuba to go to America because Cuba was just that bad. Dying at sea was worth the risk. And so we want to hear the media tell us that somehow Michael Moore is a big deal, that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a big deal, that they make the game-changing difference. I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I don't think anyone with a mind thinks so. Remember, it wasn't that long ago. It was just 6 years ago, if people pay attention, that it was Michael Moore and Sean Penn and Oliver Stone who were praising Hugo Chavez as he died. You got to remember, what did Hugo Chavez do? Why were they so happy about it? Hugo Chavez was the president of Venezuela. Hugo Chavez introduced the decline of Venezuela. And he did that because he started giving oil to Cuba, and in exchange, he was getting, quote, valuable intelligence and military assistance to the Venezuelan government, sending advisors to help train and equip security forces. Now, that's a very important statement, and that statement was made by Stratfor. And so if you have any question about how relevant and credible this source is, this is from Stratfor itself in their article on Venezuela's expensive friendships back in 2016. In 2016. And they were talking about how Cuba was sending over advisors over to Venezuela. Now, why were they doing that? Because Venezuela was on the decline. Because Venezuela owed a lot of money to China, owed a lot of money to Cuba. And their economy became socialist. They ran out of other people's money, and they collapsed. And that same training of the military to be able to win the hearts and minds of the people is the very same reason why over the last 2 years, according to the New York Times, we've seen that Venezuelan military and the government have killed over 5,000 Venezuelans. Why Venezuelans are starving. Why this once very, very profitable and very capable nation has now fallen into shambles and is dying at the vine. Yeah, this is the same thing that Bernie Sanders told America we needed to be like. We needed, 4 years ago, he said, America needs to be like Venezuela. We need to be socialists. We need to be communists. And just 4 years later, people are dying, disease is becoming rampant, and Venezuelans are fleeing from Venezuela just like Cubans fled from Cuba. And the people who think this is a wonderful thing, Michael Moore, a multimillionaire. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a former bartender who's now a congresswoman who can't do math. She can't do math. We've seen it, Green New Deal. She can't do math. And Ilhan Omar, a woman who is widely regarded as a massive anti-Semite and racist. These are supposed to be the game changers. This is supposed to be the thing that makes Bernie Sanders a viable presidential candidate. How? Why? In what way does this change anything? Yes, Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they're part of the squad. Yes, they are our figureheads of the gender identity politics, the social justice warriors that Tom Perez, the president of the DNC, has said, hey, this is what we need to emulate. This is what Democrats should become. Democrats need to become a progressive party, and they have to become more like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who herself is becoming more like Bernie Sanders. I don't understand how Democrats can keep saying they want to be in this party, why they support these candidates, they support these issues. Everywhere in the world you can point to socialism, which is in fact the first step towards communism, everywhere you can point to in the world, it has failed. It has failed in China. It has failed in Russia. It has failed in North Korea, Cuba, Venezuela. Name a country where it works. Just one. And I know people want to say, well, it's Denmark, Sweden. Sorry, ask those governments. They will tell you directly, and they have already publicly said, often, stop quoting them as being socialist. They're not socialist countries. So don't say Denmark, don't say Norway. No, they're not socialists. China is. Russia is. Venezuela, Cuba, North Korea, those are democratic socialists or just plain old socialists. Yes, they are. That's what you're talking about. And I know you always like to hear Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they keep saying, no, you don't understand. We fixed it. We figured out how to do socialism better than anyone has ever done it before. Except that is exactly what everyone has said every time they do socialism or communism. That they have figured out how to do it better than anyone has ever done it before. That they now have the secret. And the secret always relies on the same thing we hear over and over. They're going to use other people's money to advance the social, economic, and social justice ideas that they have until they run out of money. And then they're just going to force people to do what they want with the power of the government. And that's it. And that happens every single time. Sometimes it happens very quickly. Sometimes it happens a little slower, but it always goes down that same exact path. And so we're seeing people like Plot running rampant across the nation. And I am sure Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's going to get the Plot vote. The progressive leaders of tomorrow are all going to be very happy about this news. They're going to be right there behind Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying, yes, this is great. Except they are a sliver of the Democratic Party. They don't even consider themselves Democrats. They are progressives. I don't know how many times I've talked to many of these progressives, and they'll tell you that they're not Democrats. They're in the Democratic Party, but they're not Democrats. And they will tell you that they are absolutely sure they're going to change the world. They're going to stop this capitalism. They're going to stop the democratic freedom, the constitutional republic that we are. They're going to get rid of that. That is their goal. That is only their goal. And everything else is just a means to get to that end. And so I have to ask you, we know these are the things that they believe. They believe in bankrupting the country. They believe in using everybody else's money to get the goals. You haven't seen Bernie Sanders give up any of his money since he became a multimillionaire, since he's gotten his third house. You haven't seen him turn around and say, hey, I'm going to give it back. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why his campaign has been flagging. He's just been failing. He isn't going anywhere because he's an old, rich, white man who is arguing about old, rich, white men being in power. He is the person he's arguing against. Michael Moore is the people he is talking about. Michael Moore is a old, rich, white man who dares to say that if you don't agree with his ideas, you are the problem, not him, even though he is the rich white man he is complaining about. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez rails against the rich white men that she wants to call Republicans while ignoring the rich white men that are the progressives surrounding her. So are we surprised in any way? No, I'm surprised that they didn't come out with this announcement sooner. But then again, Bernie Sanders didn't have a heart attack sooner. He needed something to make him relevant, and he's not relevant. The Green New Deal is such an embarrassing idea. Even Democrats in Congress would not support it. They would not one of them would want to put their names to it. Nobody supported that bill. Not even the people who put the bill forward. And they want to tell people, and the media is trying to tell people that this is an important day, that this is important news, that somehow, that Bernie Sanders is scoring a win here, that, this is a game-changing kind of moment for Bernie Sanders. This is in the Washington Post. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar's Sanders endorsement matter, and not just to him. They don't matter. They didn't change anything. The only people that's affected by this are the same people who were affected by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar. And they have a minority in their own states as well as in the country. They're not the mainstream. They're not even representative of the left. They're representative of a fringe of the left. It's truly troubling. And that the news media is out there trying to trumpet this as some kind of great thing that everyone's been waiting for, and that this is going to have some kind of remarkable difference in the election. No, it's not. It's not. And the question isn't between Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. They're both different shades of the same gender identity, politics, socialism that the Democratic Party is trying to promote now. It's just another flag. It's just another media attempt. It's new marketing. It's the same thing with the same end goal. One wants to race there for really fast, and the other one wants to take a little more time, but they go to the same place. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I just don't realize that, there's such greatness in Bernie Sanders and the way he wants to bankrupt the nation. Maybe it's just me, and I'm just, not understanding the incredible wisdom of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as she suggests that we're going to build trains to go from California to Hawaii so that we don't need planes anymore. That we're going to just redo all over 76,000 buildings in America in the next decade to put in solar and wind energy on every one of these buildings and redo them all so that they can get to her demand of green energy. And that's a demand. Just like recently I was talking to people, you may not follow this, but I was talking about the Columbus Day Parade and the local progressive leaders of tomorrow, the local plot organization, a secret group, a cabal of individuals who won't reveal their names, don't reveal their faces, but make demands through the media anonymously, saying that we must change the way we live. We must change our rules, our lifestyles to suit their feelings because they're morally superior to everyone else. Because as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says, it's more important to be morally right than to be factually right. That's a terrifying thought. And the only people who say those kinds of things have been some of the worst dictators and totalitarians ever known to history. But that's besides the point. Let's stick with the point, which is, does this make any difference to Bernie Sanders? No. Are the people who support Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the people who support Ilhan Omar and the rest of the squad, they're the same people who are supporting Bernie Sanders anyway. That hasn't changed. And they had a big rally. They finally got a big rally for a Democratic candidate for the 2020 presidential election. They got 25,000 people. Big deal. President Trump has been getting 15,000 people at a clip in media events across the nation for the last 3 years. 25,000 one time is not a new thing. No one cares, or very few people care. But the media wants you to think that this has changed everything. That Joe Biden, who was already failing, and again, I'll show you the chart. It's not new. We've been talking about this for the last 9 months on this channel as we've been following the 2020 race. It's not new news. Yeah, Joe Biden has been failing. He's declined and he's on the downslope overall. He's not impressing anyone. But that's always been true. Bernie Sanders didn't change that. Elizabeth Warren didn't change that. That was always the case. And we're seeing that, Elizabeth Warren has moved up higher. Well, if you look back at 2016, we first mentioned that our belief is Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris are going to be president and vice president with an all-woman team up against the evil Donald Trump for the presidency of 2020. Not because they have good ideas, not because they are exceptional at their jobs. They've got horrible records in Congress. No, it's because they're women. and in the case of Kamala Harris, a woman of color, and because they support socialism and progressivism. That's it. That's why they're going to be the candidates. That was always going to be the case, and I still stand by that. And I believe it very strongly. Not because they're better, just because they're women. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not going to change that, because she was never trying to change that. She's always been behind Bernie. The announcement is not news. It's just media hype. But maybe you think I'm wrong. Maybe you think I don't understand. Maybe you think you have a better answer to this. If you do, let me know. I'm listening to you. I want to hear what you think about that. Do you think it's true that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez suddenly changes it, that she makes all the difference, that she is so politically powerful, more powerful than Nancy Pelosi, more powerful than the Democratic Party, that she can sway an election by herself? Do you believe that? Do you believe that Michael Moore makes a difference? Because you listen to Michael Moore for your political commentary. You listen to Michael Moore for his ability to create laws, to get people to pass laws. Do you really believe that? Do you believe that really makes the difference? And if you're a Democrat, and I hope you are a Democrat watching this, please, can you tell me, do you stand by these people, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Michael Moore? Do you stand by their beliefs? Do you stand by Bernie? And looking at the examples that they have pointed out, Venezuela, Cuba, do you want to live like the Venezuelans or the Cubans, the very people who have left their home countries to come to our country to live a better life? And now, Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Michael Moore, they want us to ruin our nation, to become more like the failed governments of Cuba and Venezuela, where people are leaving just because they say so and because they feel they're morally superior to you. I don't agree with that. I think this is stupid. I think the fact that they're making this into this hype about the endorsement that everyone knew and no one is surprised by, I think this is just a way to try and justify and to try and get cheap votes and cheap points for someone who is failing, whose ideas fail, and that is lagging. But again, this is what I think. Maybe you disagree. I look forward to seeing what you think. So let us know, and I hope you're going to all be well. I got to get to work, but I'll talk to you again very, very soon. Thank you, folks.